All right. So we have two final goals, mobility and connectivity. And environmental protection and sustainability. So under mobility and connectivity, we have the following outputs: multimodal transportation system, bicycle, sidewalk, and trail systems, roadways and traffic operations, and public transit. So let's begin with the first. So underneath, we have develop a clear vision for a diverse transportation system and update the transportation master plan to improve multimodal connectivity and capacity.
I would like to.
Traffic engineers.
Got it. Here, I can help you.
I would like to make that statement a little bit more action-oriented. We already have a transportation master plan. I would say something like develop a diverse transportation system to improve multimodal connectivity and capacity by implementing the transportation master plan.
Say that again?
Develop a diverse transportation system to improve multimodal connectivity and capacity by implementing the transportation master plan.
I like that, Salvis, because I didn't think clear vision needed to be in there because the transportation master plan is the vision. So I like the way you said that.
What are the comments around the room?
Go through.
And we go to the next slide. So the next, we have bicycle, sidewalk, and trail systems. And under, we have increased the accessibility and connectivity of existing bicycle, sidewalk, and trail systems between parks, river areas, downtown, university, businesses, and residential neighborhoods.
Should have said, why is downtown capitalized?
Yeah, it should probably either say Texas State University with caps or the university with lowercase, which I think would be preferable. The university, lowercase university.
I think you might want to change university to schools.
Even better,
Yeah.
even better.
We only reference downtown, do we want other commercial areas? Why is it just downtown?
It's got businesses. I assume that was to incorporate others.
Since we have the city second, the second city coming in after. Sorry.
Oh, I think the point, because you're talking about the possible second city center, it may be that once the comprehensive plan is completed, we may need to update a few things here and there.
That was my concern, yes, ma'am, for it to be expanded instead of just saying downtown, to focus on other stuff that we are going to be talking about in the next couple of years.
Well, it's got businesses and residential neighborhoods, which it encompasses anywhere in town. I would hate to single one area out. But the point still is, once we finish the comp plan, we should probably review all of this, just in case. I still wouldn't single out one area.
Okay, so how we have it, bicycle, sidewalk, and trail systems. Increase the accessibility and connectivity of existing bicycle, sidewalk, and trail systems between parks, river areas, downtown, schools, businesses, and residential neighborhoods.
I would just add existing and new,
Let's take existing down.
or just take existing out, yeah.
All right. How was that? How's that landing?
I still don't know why downtown is that.
All right, looks like we have a thumbs up around. And, oh, go ahead.
Do sidewalk and multi-use trail systems? Because we do have multi-use trail systems already.
All right. We have another,
Nitpicking a little bit, does that say we're only connecting multi-use trail systems, and if we have a single-use trail, it wouldn't be included? Sorry, I don't like words, try to take out all the words.
Fair enough.
all right, Mrs. Sidelands, increase accessibility and connectivity of bicycles, sidewalk, and trail systems between parks, river areas, downtown, schools, businesses, and residential neighborhoods. Mayor?
What's river areas as opposed to just the river? I'm just asking.
I think that's fine because we do have like the Blanco River, Shoals area, that you don't really access the river there, but it's a river area. So I think that's
Okay, other comments? Lanswell? All right, let's go on. We have roadways and traffic operations. As it reads now, increase the safety and efficiency of the existing roadway system, including investment in technology and maintenance. Okay.
But on the slide before, do you think we should,
On the slide before this, do you think we need to say something about social service agencies as being connected?
Services in general.
Yeah, there probably should be something about services, you know, we're talking about connecting these trail systems to the hospital and other things, so yeah, services makes sense to me.
Overlook, increase the accessibility and connectivity of bicycle, sidewalk, and trail systems between parks, river areas, downtown, schools, businesses, residential neighborhoods, and services. Mayor?
I would suggest do businesses and services and then put in residential neighborhood. Because that's all things that we're trying to connect to the neighborhoods. Just say and services there instead. Oh, yes, the and would go there, correct. Hayden's doing it correctly. Is that good with people? I think that flows better.
All right. So roadways and traffic operations. As it reads, increase the safety and efficiency of the existing roadway system, including investment in technology and maintenance.
I would just revise that slightly. So the success of any mode of transportation is safety, convenience, and reliability. And so I would like to include include that in the statement, increase the safety, convenience, and reliability of the existing system, including in technology and maintenance.
Was there another modification I thought I heard on the end, or is that it? Is that through capture?
Yes, that captures it.
Increase the safety, convenience, and reliability of the existing roadway system, including investment in technology and maintenance.
Would this be another one where we want to take off existing, just leave roadway systems?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with Hayden on that. It's just crossed my mind because it's really about the future development of the roads too, right? And the connectivity to them.
This is asked out of ignorance, but when TxDOT presented to City Council on their 10-year plan to reconstruct I-35, was there ever any discussion with staff before that ever went public with council? Do we need to talk about greater collaboration with TxDOT on things that are going to greatly impact our citizens?
They did talk about this.
They did.
All right, increase the safety, convenience, and reliability of the roadway system, including investment in technology and maintenance. Oh, Les, go ahead, yeah.
Lori, just understand those, Solace, Lori and I went to a ton of the meetings that they had here. I think the only thing we weren't completely aware of, and it was just their timing, what we're seeing is actually two separate 5-year projects that they happen to schedule back to back. They're going to complete one and roll right into the next one. And I don't think in those meetings that was ever communicated. It wouldn't have mattered. It's probably best it worked out that way because the only alternative would have been 5 years with some kind of a break and demobilization, and then 5 years more, which would have been even worse. Is that fair? Sean?
Look how quick she got good at that. All of a sudden, she doesn't remember anything.
Yeah, the River Ridge is the far north side. That one's about wrapped up. The big one, this 123, it's about another year to go. A lot of times, they don't know the schedule because it's all tied to funding. And so whenever the money gets in place, they just got to go. And so the phase 3, which is the far south end, that's the one that we was supposed to start like a couple years from now. That's going to get pushed out even further. So that they communicate well with us. We definitely will keep the staff involved and let folks know when public meetings occur. They do a good job of holding those. At the end of the day, we provide comments, but there's not a whole lot we can force them to do. But we do collaborate real well with TxDOT.
Another comment?
Yeah, I have one more suggestion. Instead of saying roadways, would it be more appropriate to say transportation and traffic operations? Increase the safety, convenience, and reliability of the transportation system, including investment in technology and maintenance.
So change this.
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. So we're saying transportation and traffic operations, and then under
Yes.
increase the safety, convenience, and reliability of the transportation system, including investment in technology and maintenance.
That's correct. Transportation is just more broad, includes all transportation, modes of transportation, not just roadways.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that because what was jumping out at me is the railroad intersections. Some of those may not necessarily have a roadway on them or whatever, but that's part of the safety.
Other comments?
Is there any way we can incorporate something to do with the train system?
I think
Since it's a transportation issue. Somehow, some way, and anybody have any ideas? other than putting a bomb underneath the train or something. Yeah, they seem to do whatever they want. Just thought I'd throw it out there. Thank you.
I think that kind of encompasses it when you talk about convenience and reliability of the transportation system. Because that's kind of all encompassing. It doesn't name it directly, but.
We all know that they don't stay there 15 minutes, it's more like an hour or something. Yeah. All right, thank you.
All right, other comments? What other comments do we have with this one? Looks like we're good to go. Transportation, got it. Public transit. Under this particular output, we have invest in the resources necessary to achieve a seamless, coordinated public transit system through implementation of the Transit Master Plan. Ma'am.
Again, reading this from the general public, that invest sounds like it's all going to be our tax dollars, and it's not, but I don't know how we want to say that this is, there's going to be some outside money coming in. Maybe parentheses after resources, federal and other or something, I don't know. I just want to make sure the general public doesn't know their taxes are going to be raised to do this.
What other comments following the suggestion?
When we were in our group yesterday, we had a little conversation about public transportation is really, if we're looking forward, then how do we make sure our roads can be expanded easily to support the different multimodal type of transportation? We're talking about, a rail system or a trolley system or something like that, but also looking further into that is we're having these new developments coming in, is putting these multimodal, I think we have one downtown, the transportation hub, and start designating those areas throughout our area where we want to have those gathering points for commuting and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure what the wording is, if that goes here or if it goes someplace else, but if we're looking at, this whole concept of mobility, need to look, 5 years out, 10 years out of starting to say, okay, how do we put these, commuting areas outside, bringing them in and all that kind of stuff. Just a thought, so.
Is that part of a public transit system that maybe it is, but we should say more about it?
I would agree it's part of the public transportation, the transit master plan. I'm not sure what's in that master plan, if it's just the observation when I went overseas that they have, that type of system set up, and knowing the struggles we have with parking in the downtown area, getting people to HEBs and all that kind of stuff. And, if we want a centralized area, then people need to be able to get on a system, and all that kind of stuff. I know Austin struggled to do it after the fact with all of their transit systems and all that kind of stuff. So just an idea, especially when we're looking at developing out of town, that we have the right of way to implement it in the future. So.
Yeah, and I'm thinking maybe this is one of those through partnerships, Ms. Reyes, but because that's federal, that's university, so maybe adding a through partnerships at the end helps. Not everything, but that's going to help me with saying we need to be able to show or talk about or indicate there's money coming from other sources.
Correct. Because we've also got the FTA, the Federal Transportation Administration, all that. So I think the partnerships would be great. Exactly. That makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Comment. Lori?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so we have it as public transit. Prioritize the resources necessary to achieve a seamless, coordinated public transit system through partnerships and implementation of the transit master plan. Good to go? Nice, all right. Last but not least. Never least.
Yeah.
This is where our time about to go. Okay. I think we have environmental protection and sustainability, right? So we had a change there, if you all remember. And then under, we have environmental stewardship, sustainable infrastructure, sustainable operations, and environmentally friendly growth. Underneath our first, environmental stewardship, we have as written, demonstrate and promote responsible stewardship of the natural and built environment, including our rivers, aquifers, that's it, aquifers, and other sensitive features. Thank you. All right, what are our thoughts around environmental stewardship?
Before we go here, could we go back to the previous slide?
Sure.
And no, just rearrange it so the two environmental are together and the two sustainable are together. That kind of makes sense to me, however we do it.
Any preference on environmental then sustainable?
Put the two environmental together. And probably on the top, yeah.
Okay. All right. Got it. All right, so environmental stewardship. Comments, thoughts? Modifications, is it clean as is? Give you a second to think about it.
Actually, I'm kind of somebody, we talked about this in the group yesterday, that I'd like to focus on the river being the destination of the river, us focusing on that the city revolves around it. So is there a way that we can, I don't demonstrate and promote, but to sit there and say, set a standard, or to be the standard of responsible stewardship of natural resource? I mean, I just want to make sure that, yeah. Well, I was wondering if we can somehow say that we would set the standard, or San Marcos would be the standard for all of Texas to be the steward of all their natural resources. Just, well, you know, that's what they want us to be, but how do we do that? Is there any way that we can incorporate that into this sentence?
Promote or the how? I'm sorry.
Well, set the standard or be the standard for, but maybe that just makes us seem too big for our britches.
Set the highest. Yeah, well, I know, but I kind of, you know, just to kind of put us out there for some kind of.
Because the San Marcos River is the best river in the world. I'm not being facetious, for real.
All right, how do we feel like, how is this landing?
I'm okay with that, but that's just me.
Mayor, do you have a comment?
Not on that, but when we're ready for another thought, I have one.
The only thing that kind of jumps out at me as we talk about stewardship of the natural and built environment, I think we just talk about the environment, because when we list the rivers, aquifers, and features, none of that is built environment. That's all natural environment. So I think we can just talk about the environment in general and take out natural and built. I know, I've moved on.
I was willing to wait until we finish the other.
I just want to
Okay, so what's the thought around this one?
I agree, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay, all right, so set the standard by demonstrating responsible stewardship of the environment, including our rivers, aquifers, and other sensitive features. Is that what I'm hearing? Set the standard for demonstrating? You like how that lands? Is that what it's, your thought with that?
I like to set the standard and demonstrate better, which is, I think, what we had.
I think by adding by demonstrating makes it more actionable, and I think that's part of the goals that I've heard you all talk about. So by demonstrating makes it more actionable for us.
Communicate with you.
Thank you.
All right. How does that land with others if we capture the needs? Okay. Well, once, going twice. Any other comments? All right. So we've moved environmental. You want to just go ahead and move it up? All right, we have environmentally friendly growth, promote environmental protections and sustainable building practices through codes and processes. Thoughts? Is it hitting environmentally friendly growth? Is it aligned, that statement?
So we're talking about environmentally friendly, and then we say environmental protection, but then we go to sustainable building practices. The sustainable green building is, you know, we've mentioned that in some conversations that we want to be, you know, can we dictate developers to be more green in how they develop businesses and residential, or we just look for leading the way by our facilities being more green? With the infrastructure that we put in and building materials that are being used. So, you know, that's the comment I have on this one.
Is green part of sustainable? Yeah, sustainable is a broader term and green is inclusive underneath that. So I like where you're going, but I think it's there. And this leads us into our next section, which is sustainable.
Oh, Amanda. Did you want to say something, Amanda? No?
No, just to respond to that, the state's taken away a lot of our ability to require certain things as far as building practices. So just keeping that in mind, you know, to Mike's comment, it might be the city being the one who sets that standard and takes the lead, but we might not be able to require it of others in our codes. But we could take it as far as the state will allow.
But we're gonna demonstrate being a leader. Yes, ma'am. I like it.
So, environmentally friendly growth, promote environmental protections and sustainable building practices through codes and processes. We're good to go with that? All right, so we have sustainable infrastructure, incorporate sustainability into existing and future city infrastructure planning, construction, operations, and maintenance. Comments around this? Incorporate sustainability into existing and future city infrastructure planning, construction, operations, and maintenance. Good to go?
Trying to maintain an ecological balance.
I think there's some conversations over there around some of the words.
That's just thesaurus goes.
Yeah.
So when you look up sustainability, the 3 pillars are economic viability, environmental protection, and social equity. Those are the 3 pillars of sustainability.
I was just going to say, when sustainability was a council initiative last time, maybe 2 years ago, we developed using those pillars and using the information out of the World Health Organization, incorporated those 3 things into some of our planning processes on CIP. So, as I was telling Councilmember Mendoza, it's not something you can just implement on the turn of a dime. It takes a while to start to really incorporate it fully and do that. But yeah, it includes more than just green. It has a socioeconomic to it.
And it even says here, sustainability is a societal goal that relates to the ability of people to safely coexist on Earth over a long period of time. However, specific definitions of sustainability are difficult to agree on and have varied with literature, context, and time. So I think that's indicative of us kind of saying, okay, what else could this be to convey what we're trying to convey here? But it does talk about those 3 pillars as being something that usually is involved in sustainability concepts.
Is sustainable, is another word here for, maintainable infrastructure?
Yep.
And that was kind of where I was thinking too. Look, when I think of sustainable, we have the kind of nuance, what we're talking about, the new thought process is sustainable. But just sustainable as me is sustain what you have, right? Maintaining, existing, you're sustaining it, not having to keep it up to par so it doesn't deteriorate over time, right? So,
I think we need to be very explicit whenever we use terms that might have multiple meanings. So I hear you, just however you flip it and reverse it, we just need to be like, we're not talking about environment sustainable here. We're talking about sustainable as in like maintenance. Because people will get it twisted, so.
Well, the other kind of simple definition is sustainability consists of fulfilling the needs of current generations without compromising the needs of future generations.
Right, but that's sustainable outside the context of environmental. So historically, at least within the last conversations we've had about goals and stuff, when we say sustainable, we mean the environment. So just for specificity and clarity's sake, just figure out how to.
That's what we took when we took it from last year, at least not in the infrastructure planning. We went back to, that's why we went to a much.
That's why we went to a much higher definition than just. A higher definition it's also about engaging the community and making sure that the improvements are what they want. It is a very, very broad, encompassing perspective when your goal is to try to achieve attainable, sustainable infrastructure. It is, and we can pull that document back out that we created,
But I'll add that, Councilmember Garza, I think you're right in terms of that thought process. And I think when you raised it earlier, I think that led to the change in the name, environmental protection and sustainability, to separate environmental and sustainability. So I think they heard you earlier.
Oh yeah, it's just like, anytime you put the word sustainable next to environmental, people are gonna make assumptions. So, especially since we are like the river town, we've got a bunch of river nerds. I say that as one myself, so it's like no shade.
But I was inferring into this, what you're saying that maybe we shouldn't, is that we would have, and I think we have been doing, and I'm not thinking that, the rainwater is gonna run the building, okay? But, if we have the rainwater to maybe have landscaping, an example of the fact that we're using some rainwater, maybe a few solar panels, again, I don't expect it to run the whole building, but I was thinking some environmental, which to me helps with the sustainability, so I don't see it as, in this case, being exclusive of environmental.
All right, so how it reads, incorporate sustainability into existing and future city infrastructure planning, construction, operations, and maintenance.
And all of this can become more clear with the items that come under it.
Correct, the strategy. Okay. And we have sustainable operations. Implement innovative programs and projects to advance environmental resiliency for current and future residents. Comments? You have a comment?
My comment was to laugh.
I'm trying to figure out how this is different in intent from the previous one.
I think this one was more outside the organization, to the city as a whole, wasn't it? Where the last one was more.
Yeah, and the last one, and maybe we added operations on the last one as an afterthought, but I think the discussion is infrastructure is a little bit different and then the programs and projects. And we were trying, as Hayden says, to try to show that what we were doing was not just, we were helping the resiliency of the residents. It was kind of throwing that other picture to it. So you can be sustainable in what you're doing, how you're doing it, but if you also then do projects that make things sustainable for others, that was that internal versus external focus.
I think maybe operations is what was throwing me, because operations, I'm thinking that's our operations. That helps a lot.
So the change is sustainable programs as opposed to sustainable operations. Underneath, the read is implement innovative programs and projects to advance environmental resiliency for current and future residents. Comments, modifications, value add, does it land or capture well?
I think the mayor's reminded me we had this discussion yesterday, but I'll just throw it out there. Maybe we'll come up with some other ideas in the future, but lumping environmental protection and sustainability in this context being like maintaining existing structures doesn't make sense for me. As like, I think they're two separate frameworks or visions or goals, and it makes the rest of these very confusing. Because sometimes to maintain sustainability in our operations, we do forfeit environmental concerns. Like, let's be real, half of us aren't recycling right now. So I don't know. I don't think that they should be lumped together, but.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that it's going to be a very difficult message to, I guess, share with the community, because you're going to see environmental protection and sustainability in the same, and you're going to immediately think green. So if we are talking about maintaining, I think that does go more underneath, like maybe the public safety core services. But whenever I'm putting the messaging together and talking sustainability, especially if environmental protection is following that, people are gonna be thinking that we're talking green.
So is the thought here to move this particular piece?
I think I just want to make sure that either we're all on the same page, or at least I have a better understanding that if we're going to be using sustainable, whenever it's underneath environmental protection, that it is more about going green versus maintaining. Because there is a very big difference in context, and I think that our community is going to see that very differently.
I was just gonna say, I think a lot of there's an education component missing here. I think that's something we can handle at our level, is educating people on the meaning of sustainability. Because a lot of people don't realize it's so much broader than just green infrastructure or green construction. We just gotta get that message out and educate them on it.
Sure, and I'm all for doing that, but I want to make sure that we are understanding their mission and their goal. Is sustainability to our council, is that maintaining, or is that specifically going green whenever we're talking about this goal in particular?
I think no matter what we do, you're going to have interpretations. I think, anytime you throw the word sustainable and you've got operations or infrastructure, some people are going to look at that as the actual maintenance of it or the quality of it when you finish building it. And then you're going to have other people that are going to take that word and run to green. And I don't know how you distinguish those two, because as a society, we have decided how to distinguish those two. And there's two very big different groups in that. So.
Yeah, but what do we mean right now? Right, like.
Yeah, it's a big word that has heavy meaning for individuals, and I want to make sure that whenever I'm going back and I am creating the messaging, that I am doing it appropriately for what y'all's mission is.
What is more attainable, maintenance or?
Well,
if we're going to try to.
But they don't necessarily have to be in conflict with each other, although sometimes they are. The way that we form this goal almost puts them in that way. Does that make sense?
So have we come full circle then, and if we're talking sustainability and we all just want to focus on environmental sustainability and acknowledge that we go back to the original title of just environmental sustainability? Because I think what we've done inadvertently is we've separated environmental protection and then this other thing, sustainability.
But all the outcomes support environmental sustainability. So I think that's where we need to, so I think that's what we just need to, is that the intent or is it not? They may. I'm just saying for the purposes of what we have here, a lot of it's environmental sustainability, or it speaks to that in a lot of ways. Maybe we should take out environmental.
Just say resiliency.
Y'all, read the room, like the San Marcos room. We take out environmental, they're gonna think we hate the river. We do not.
What do you mean by maintenance? Define, when you always say
Right.
maintenance.
I thought we were talking about environmental sustainability until we went down the rabbit hole on the sustainable infrastructure, talking about incorporate sustainability into existing and future city infrastructure, da-da-da-da. It was like the ability to keep doing the functions that we're doing. We're talking, okay, because when we were reading the definition and stuff, do we mean here in sustainable infrastructure environmental sustainability?
Yes. That's the way I understood.
I think what Shirley was pointing out is that it's the message, right? It's what we try to portray here. And one of the definitions here is capable of being endured, right?
Right.
That to me is the maintenance or the quality of it. I mean, so if somebody is reading into it, they're going to read into this. I don't know how you get that message across.
Right.
Even if we want to go one way, I think it's going to be easily missed.
Honestly, this is probably a lot more work, but a lot of these terms that might have multiple meanings, we should probably have some sort of legend where we're like explicit. When we say diverse in this context, we don't mean a variety of, right? Because we keep on having these conversations about these words that people may or may not misinterpret. So why don't we just make something so that they don't misinterpret it. It's like a handful of words, like 3 or 4.
What if we were to settle
What you just read is not what we're reading.
I'm just reading from Merriam-Webster.
Right, right, so, but what's our conceptualization in this context?
And that would be helpful, because when sustainability first came from the Sustainability Committee, we took that as a much broader term. That was included environmental sustainability, but included other aspects of it that make things sustainable over a long period of time. To the definition that Stephanie read. If you all want us to just focus on environmental sustainability, then we can certainly do that. That would be a smaller subset. So as Joe pointed out, if we just want to put environmental sustainability, then we can do that if that makes it clear for your expectations.
I mean, I expect you to do both. Just don't lump it in one bowl.
We call it environmental resilience in our checklist. That's the word I think you said earlier.
I just want a new city hall that lasts longer than 20 years and won't crack.
We have,
Man, that's sustainable.
Linda, you have a comment?
Enduring. That's enduring.
Oh. Okay, so going back to the last one, with sustainable infrastructure, we want to say incorporate environmental sustainability into existing and future city infrastructure planning, construction, operations, and maintenance.
Does that make it easier to get down to the public when you market, when you inform them of this?
It does, if that's where y'all are truly wanting to go. That's the thing, like, which way do y'all want to go with the word sustainability? If that's where y'all want to go, then yes, that makes it a little bit easier. That's what I'm trying to decipher.
With what the mayor said, incorporate environmental and structural sustainability. I mean, so that's where you get into that part. So it's not maintaining, but there's structural sustainability with.
Well, it's in durable materials and construction, such that it will last. And that's
where the structural part came.
Yeah, that's the sustainability.
Right.
And so I think because we've got 2 items on environmental already, I was thinking this was more on the sustainability, which there may be some green stuff in there, and maybe there isn't, but we need things that last a while. We need roadways that last a while. We need buildings that last a while. We need paint.
Let Sean read that checklist and yeah.
Sure, the environmentally sustainable checklist that she's talking about is benefit sharing, environmental resilience, social acceptability, economic and institutional effectiveness, future proofing, and strategic planning. Those are the 5.
That's the big definition of sustainability.
Put infrastructure in place and environmental. Everything we're still saying.
Let's just separate the 2 terms.
We keep combining again.
I have to decide on the headlines. I think about this. I'm feeling a very good something about this.
And that's where you go back to that checklist that Sean referred on. Is you just don't look at environmental. You look at
How long it's going to last. So is it a super environmentally friendly, but its life might not last, or its acceptance isn't there. So there's a balance when you're truly thinking about sustainability to what the point you were saying before, and it's not just focused solely on environment. Sustainability is you look at multiple facets.
So then back to, it should be separate then. Like the goal, lumping them together is just conflicts. Community.
Yeah, it's hard to get that to the public.
We're having as much trouble.
Yes.
well, we think it's
I want to make sure we capture it correctly. Okay, so the goal itself, does it stay the same environmental protection and sustainability? Is that what we want to have, or we want to take protection out and put it back to its original form, environmental and sustainability?
So the original goal was, not the original, but what we landed on this morning, environmental protection and sustainability. Advance responsible stewardship of the community's resources through innovative, environmentally friendly, and sustainable policies and practices which promote healthy lifestyles. That's the overriding larger goal.
So based upon the goal and the statement goal underneath, we have environmental stewardship, environmentally friendly growth, sustainable infrastructure, and sustainable operations.
So sustainable, in that case, is a different message than just environmental stewardship. And if that's not where the council wants to go, then it would be very helpful for us to clarify that, because we may have gone a direction that you weren't ready.
And maybe just another detail on environmental protection, that's an outcome, to protect the environment. Sustainability is how you do something, an approach. And you go back and look at public safety, core services, and fiscal excellence. You could say that we want to sustainably, on financial management, do it in a sustainable way. Under infrastructure management, do it in a sustainable way. I mean, we can do that through all of our core services, approach it in a sustainable manner, whether that's environmental, economic, or from a social impact. But here, I think that what I'm hearing is that there's really a sense that this needs to focus on environmental protection. By throwing sustainability in there, you've added this word that has different meanings to different people. To some people, it would have no meaning. They'll have to go look it up and interpret it for themselves.
So thoughts on having it read, environmental protection, under the statement for it, advance responsible stewardship of the community's resources through varied environmentally friendly and sustainable policies and practices. Underneath, our outputs would be environmental stewardship, environmentally friendly growth. Did we keep that as that? Or did we change that one?
Resilient infrastructure and resilient, what do people
What I was saying is, instead of calling it sustainable infrastructure and sustainable operations, would it be resilient? Is that a more intuitive word for people to understand? So that it would, resiliency does connotate a long life, good condition, it responds after disasters.
It takes the green environmental part out that we can then address separately. And that's become the new word. I think that may fix a lot of this.
So we're saying, instead of sustainable infrastructure, it would now read resilient infrastructure, and underneath incorporate environmental.
I've got the Cambridge dictionary up here. I'm on my 4th dictionary. So, on the environmental description of sustainable, and I think this kind of meets the definition of resilient, causing or made in a way that causes little or no damage to the environment and therefore able to continue for a long time. And I think resilient kind of leans in that direction, but we're not hitting the environmental side, but we have incorporate environmental, right? So that's the closest definition I found to where I think we were all trying to get to.
Okay, so we have resilient infrastructure instead of sustainable infrastructure. Incorporate environmental sustainability into existing and future city infrastructure planning, construction, operations, and maintenance.
Yes, I like environment. I like green.
That's what I'm wondering is if we keep going.
Keep going back to the environment.
Yes.
But now the environmental sustainability is.
Well, I think that definition that I just read really does talk about environmental and therefore able to continue for a long time. And that kind of gets back to resiliency. Resiliency kind of means last for a while, I think. It may not exactly be right, but if we don't get into some sort of what we're trying to say environmentally or sustainability, like resilient, like what are we trying to get to here? And I think resilient does kind of hit on both the long-term maintenance of things, but also the environmental side of it.
What is it that you want?
Yeah, do we want to?
I mean,
Are we gonna go green or are we gonna try to focus on just sustaining or helping what we have now?
Yeah. That's why it goes back to what is it?
Based on the checklist that Sean read, it almost feels like sustainability would be like the bigger topic, and environmental protection, or what is it? Environmental. Yeah, that's a part of overall sustainability. Then that aligns with something that we already have, I guess, but.
Would you all like to hear the list again? Would that help?
It's not confusing to me, but you lump environmental under sustainability, and I think folks might take it some other way, but.
Will you read the list again?
I'm comfy with it.
Sure.
How will they take it? Like,
Are you gonna prioritize sustainability? Because sometimes things, in order for things to be sustainable, it's most cost effective. And sometimes things that are most cost effective aren't necessarily the best for the environment, i.e. just think of every conversation Max has had during development conversations. Does that answer your question?
We're gonna go ahead and hear the list.
And the title of the list is?
Sustainability checklist.
Can you go back to the first document that goes a little bit, but there was a document before that? You see it in there?
I don't have that. I just got the headers of the, and then all the things underneath it that we verify against. It's a pretty lengthy list of little sub bullets. But the 5 categories are benefit sharing, environmental resilience, social acceptability, economic and institutional effectiveness, future proofing, and strategic planning.
So, let me go back to this.
So benefit sharing means that one element of society doesn't benefit over another. You know, that you're thinking about all aspects of society. Because sometimes, you know, you try to minimize that one element of society benefits over another side as much as you can. And the next one was,
Environmental resilience.
okay, then environmental resiliency is what you're doing and how well, goes back to Councilmember Gleason's definition of how does it impact the environment and will it create a long-lasting effect? The next one.
Social acceptability.
Then it's like, that one is more about you're listening to the people who are going to be impacted, and are you taking into account their needs? Are they accepting, or are you finding a solution? Are you working towards that acceptability of that?
Economic and institutional effectiveness.
That's where it goes back to maintenance. We tie back into financially, does it show, that goes to your comment, Elisa, about, you know, sometimes certain things are better for us if we have the ability to maintain it versus some other kind of aspect that may be really cool environmentally, but we can't maintain it. So you factor that in too. You have to balance that.
Future-proofing and strategic planning.
Then future proofing is, you're not just thinking about today, you're thinking about, this speaks to climate change. You know, you're thinking about how things are going to change in the future, and are you taking that into consideration? So underneath all these things are all these little, and again, this is an infrastructure which has a life of about 50 years. Most infrastructure lasts that long. So you step back and you try to hit all these things. They're not prioritized. It's not one is more important than the other. It's just that you're trying to make sure you go through all these processes to develop what the best infrastructure solution is going to be, taking all these things into consideration.
Oh, good.
Okay, so back to, based upon some of the conversation in the room, do we want to land under one of the outputs as resilient infrastructure? And underneath resilient infrastructure, we would have it read as incorporate environmental sustainability into existing and future city infrastructure planning, construction, operations, and maintenance.
I'm waiting for the mayor to save us.
That may not happen, but we said we've got resilient infrastructure because there was all the confusion about the environmental and the sustainability, and do you have environmental sustainability? And here we have environmental sustainability in a sentence. But have we actually gone back up about 10 steps and what is it we're trying to do? And then come back into, instead of, I mean, did I sleep through something? And if I did, tell me, but what is it that we want to do? And I hate to say start over, but where are we trying to go? I mean, what was the purpose of?
That's why I was reading that initial goal that you guys, advances responsible stewardship of the community's resources through innovative, environmentally friendly, and sustainable policies and practices which promote healthy lifestyles. It's pretty broad.
And it's right here as well.
Oh, sorry.
Right. If what we're really trying to simplify is that anything we do is going to be sensitive to the environmental protection of our community, the cultural, natural, historical resources, those are the things that it sounds like we would drop sustainability and just do environmental protection and make that clear that that's the intent, if that is the intent of the council. So, but it seems like that is a lot more clear than the sustainability because that has so many interpretations as we've all talked about for the last hour.
Most people are not looking at cultural and historical when they're thinking about environmental. We brought that, they're talking about protecting the aquifer in our river. If you just want to get down to it, in our community, it's protecting the aquifer in the river. And all the things that it takes to do that. But that's what people are going to be expecting under environmental protection. Do we want to broaden their horizons and broaden our thoughts to cultural and historical? I'm not opposed to that. We just need to make sure that we have something about protecting the environment in all of this.
From my perspective, and I think the people that I tend to spend time with, the environmental protection piece is very much aligned with cultural and historical resources and values, right? So indigenous roots and just like the whole story of, you know, the longest inhabited, whatever, you know, insert the Glass Bottom Boat Tour speech here. So I'm comfy adding that. So I feel like for a lot of locals as well, that's an important aspect.
Hayden, were you clear on that? Gotcha.
So then we're going back again to.
I took sustainability.
Okay.
And then we need to go to
Yes. So now we have environmental protection, advanced responsible stewardship of the community's resources through varied environmentally friendly policies and practices. Under there, we have outcomes of but there's a historical aspect that we missed.
I might have been gone when it was removed, but on the top part, it had it already, right, Mayor? Because that's what you just read?
I'm gonna go back to the,
Oh, no, I'm not talking about up there, no. I thought we were talking about that, the goal.
We said earlier that we were going to take it out because I think we were looking at the, I'm going to call it the traditional environmental definition that we all have. I said I didn't mind broadening the horizons to do that because you're right, when you're talking about environmental, then sometimes you get into artifacts. When you're talking about artifacts, you're talking about other cultures, and it goes, that happens, so. Yeah. I'm okay if we put natural, cultural, and historic. Leave it in there, take it out. I think the rubber's gonna meet the road when you do your, what do we call them? The strategies.
so what's the final land? We're putting natural back in. Yes, we're putting natural back in, from what I'm hearing. Okay. All right. So we have advanced responsible stewardship of the community's natural, cultural, and historical resources through varied environmental friendly policies and practices. Is that the okay of everyone? Okay, looks like it is. And then we go back again to the last two, I believe, that we're still having a little bit of gray area there. So resilient infrastructure is where we're gonna land and stay? Or there's something else that we want to do?
I think environmental comes out of this one, correct? Isn't that what was confusing us?
Okay.
Leaving environmental there? Or?
So then under here, we have incorporate resiliency into existing and future city infrastructure planning, construction, operations, and maintenance.
A city hall that'll last longer than X years and without cracks.
I just hope the voters that it's going to bond, see it that way too.
Okay. All right, we move on from that one, looks like. Yes? Additional comments? Okay, and it brings us back to the last one, whether it be operations or programs. Sustainable programs is where we last left off. And underneath, we have implement innovative programs and projects to advance environmental resiliency for current and future residents. Do we want to make it environment? Okay, got it. Do we want to make it environmental programs?
So now we have 3 environmental items and 1 sustainable
No sustainable at this time now, because the
I'm
other
sorry,
has been
three
resilient.
environmental and one resilient.
And I'm almost wondering if we need that resilient one.
Yeah.
Because you already have infrastructure management under course.
Under our services. That's where I was, unless you just want it for emphasis to show that it doesn't have to be.
Unless you just want it for emphasis to show that when you're doing things with the environment, or with infrastructure, you're always considering the environment. So that would be one way to look at it. Environmentally, well, we have environmentally resilient, so maybe environmental and resilient.
Is that what you were saying there?
Well, this was the external one, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. But we were going to, I don't know, going back to something else, if this is what we want to do to tell the community, you know, some cool stuff that they could do, should do, then I don't know that it's necessarily implement. We want to, I don't know what the verb is there, but educate about using, educate using, that's more where we're going. Yeah, because we can't implement them all, but we can tell people about it. So yeah, educate's a better word there, I think. And promote's a good word there.
Yeah, I think promote and educate, because that also implies that the programs that we do have, like Amy's programs, like that we're gonna educate on those, which she already does a fabulous job doing, so.
All right, so we have promote innovative programs and projects, promote and educate, okay, promote and provide education on innovative programs and projects to advance environmental resiliency for current and future residents.
Promote and educate, right? It could be, but I don't think the average person would see that.
Right, because to me, like, promote would be like, hey, we have all these trash cans at Sights and Sounds. But I feel like historically that we've done like the education piece where we like post about it, or there's like a video about it, you know what I mean? So it's like,
It's important to use the trash cans.
I just think of Amy's video where she's like, hey, it's gonna get windy, you guys, so go outside and like bring your trash cans in. Like, that's just not promoting, like she's educating and like, yeah, so.
So sounds like we've landed on, as one of the outputs, environmental programs, promote and educate current and future residents on innovative programs and projects.
I think what we need to do is promote innovative programs and educate.
As soon as I was-
Promote and educate, there's just not a way to follow that that makes sense. Promote the innovative programs and projects and educate the public to advance environmental resiliency. Educate current and future, that's fine, I said the public, but that's good. On, about. If we say, in front of that, educate, if we change and to two, does that help? Promote innovative programs and projects to educate residents about.
I think we're really close.
So we have promote innovative programs and projects to educate residents about environmental resiliency.
I would say and instead of to, because then that allows us the chance to provide that education through video, posts, different things.
So now it says promote innovative programs and projects and educate residents about environmental resiliency.
Do we need a semicolon?
Don't like that project.
Can we just take out one of the programs or projects?
Think projects.
That
Yeah.
helps a lot.
It's a little bit more cleaner, possibly, you all think. Promote innovative programs and educate residents about environmental resiliency.
Yes.
Yeah? All right.
So do we want to take this one out completely, seeing that it's under the core services one?
Councilman, you have a comment? No? So are we wanting to eliminate this particular one?
Is it under core services? I'm good with moving it there.
So if you look under core services, we already have an infrastructure management one.
There you go.
But if we add, if we add something about resilient under that one,
And something about environment. We want environment there. Like,
What
to
are-
to show that we're being mindful of the environment as well.
Now that infrastructure management's coming in.
I'll just have to say, to me, it takes the emphasis off. This was more about where this is just the core. When we add it under environmental, we're doing one step more with that focus on it. That's the difference for
reason why we
me
did it there.
when we separated it out.
do we just move it completely? We could just move resilient infrastructure.
If the council is okay without that emphasis,
I like it being under core services. This is at the heart of what we do. It's not just over here, we do it sometimes. This is what we do.
We're not, but we're not taking, to clarify, we're not taking this out though, right? Okay.
You know, if you could merge them, I'm fine with that. Rather than adding another one to it.
So are we eliminating or moving?
I think we're just moving this one under the public safety core services.
so when we have when we're stepping out and we're doing more innovative things, particularly in terms of resiliency and environmental protection and things like that, that just rolls under our core service. Does that allow more money to come to that core service because we're doing those extra steps? I mean, I'm just telling you, it is, when you go through that process, it is, we try to do it every time, but there is an extra effort when we make that a goal. There's ramifications to that, so.
And I think, just to, you know, as far as the thought process that our team was going through and putting this together, is the one thing that you heard yesterday during the CIP process, right? And the difficulty with all the constraints that we have with that. So we want to make sure the staff is going to be tasked with doing these projects, that there's going to be the funding to support that, whatever that means. And so that was one. The second thing is when we were dealing with all the things that you as council have had to deal with when it comes to economic development and projects, and even with future development of projects, if it's bond elections or whatever it is that we do, the environmental protection and I won't use sustainability, but the environmental protection, the ecological aspect of what we do is going to be important. So that's the reason why we had it in those two different areas in the two different ways, because they spoke to two different interests.
I think we're good. All right. I think that is it. I think we did it. Give yourselves a round of applause. Yeah!
So before we get to this one, there was one parking lot item that I know was mentioned, and so just need to see if the council wants to go back to it, was the mention of families. You know, do we want to add families in here if it's to the quality of life and sense of place? So do we want to go back to that one and look and see where the appropriate place is for that?
It may be a and families.
Right.
Somewhere.
Quality of life. Hold on, what the
Mayor, you can also reference furry friends too, so that's missing.
And, yeah, family and pets.
Yes, pets too.
There's one with no children and scared of dogs. Go back to the original description of this section. Where we have a
High quality of life for all, can we put families in there? Yeah, because there's lots of different, yeah, like you say, there's different types of families. It's not always mom, dad, and 2 children.
I was about to say not everybody has a family. However, I feel like all families captures even chosen family, which I think a lot of people in San Marcos, especially like college students or people who stick around after college, find. So
And families can change over time if you're talking about your chosen family. But family, I think we understand, doesn't have to be blood relationship or
like in the
ring on finger relationship.
look at us being so inclusive.
So does that get for kids in there then? Yep. Okay.
I'm gonna say it does, if I guess.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, but I want them to know that.
Yeah, they
No,
don't
that's
think we're
fine.
saying
As
that.
long as it incorporates
Family shouldn't. Blood, I guess it's what you mean.
Kids have 4-footed families. I think this is good, for me, it's a good view.
Is there anything else? I know we tried to make sure that, as y'all talked about things that were important to you as a council, even if it was an individual member, we did try to, see if we could put that down. Customer service, we were able to do that. We talked about families. Was there anything else that was kind of missing here that we may have missed, kind of addressed, or needed to address at this time? Go ahead.
I just think it needs to be said. I am bummed that we didn't incorporate equity as a lens in general, because I think what I have discovered, and I've been, throwing little comments to the mayor, is that we do it. I think equity in action is important to acknowledge that we do it in a way, and not including that somewhere in here strips us from that, but it also makes it easier to put that like in the bottom of the priority list. So, Mayor, I'm not good at that.
I can put it here, let's put, cultivate a community that promotes inclusivity, equity, and belonging.
Sure, I just meant something that emphasizes that in everything that we're doing, we're considering equity. Does that make sense? Like, as an overall lens. But, I don't know, maybe a stroke of genius will come to me in the middle of the night and I'll just propose something later.
Put it here.
Put it here so it doesn't get lost, and if we end up moving it somewhere else, then that may happen.
Stephanie, under, when we were talking about economic vitality, Councilmember Prather talked about trying to work in prosperous economy. Is that something we're doing on our side?
We did work in prosperous, and I will tell you on the equity side, we did use inclusivity and belonging as equity, but if that's something that council wants to do in doing that, because one of the strategies is going to be about that diversity, equity, and inclusion officer that you've authorized, so that will be one of those, but it's definitely up to council's pleasure. Just wanted you to know it wasn't something that was off our list, it was just that's how we captured it. But we could definitely add it there for emphasis, like we have other things, if that's the council's direction.
The only thing that's not here, and maybe this isn't where it's going to go, but is the thing that I keep bringing up at times is I voted for the clean community fee to make some real distinguished changes in our community, not just another few mowings and this, that, and the other. And I keep coming across things and I'm going, hey, we need to fix this, we need to fix this. Do we have, I wish that we kept some money that was unassigned in that clean community fee so it could be tapped into by whichever department we need. We've got a lot of signage in our city that's moldy and algae and looks horrible, and we need to clean it. And we need to do stuff, and I hate to put some of this, the burden on the people that do signs anyway, because this is an addition for them. And so I don't know where it goes. I don't want to say in here that we're going to have a clean community, because it sounds like we don't now, which we don't. But that's just something that I think we need to upgrade the appearance of our community, whether it's leaning on businesses to do what they're supposed to do by code and et cetera, and there's a bit of that underway. We've got code compliance is getting people to do some things about mowing yards, et cetera. But there's a sign down by the Parks Department that talks about some historic trail, and that thing is faded and it looks horrible. And there's one on each side, I think there's one by the cottage kitchen. And it's been faded and horrible looking forever. And to me, it's an embarrassment to our city. We don't look like a first-class city when we have things like that. So I wish that we had some of our community enhancement fee, I'm talking like $10,000, $20,000, $25,000 set aside, not budgeted, so that when we find these things, we've got funding to go take care of it, because sometimes I hear we don't have money to do that, or, oh, electric has got to go do it. One of them, it was those missing lamp covers on the Wonder World extension. We had, I don't know, 6 or 8 of them that they were missing. I mean, it wasn't the bulb that was missing. The head thing was, the lamp head was missing. The arm was missing. And unfortunately, they're not available anymore. And we've got a sort of solution in between. But they were missing for like 3 years. I complained about it when Jared Miller was here. And so I think it makes us look like a second-rate, third-rate community when we have things like that, and I want us to look better. We've got a fee to do that. I think we need to be using it to do that.
But I don't think that was the intent. I don't think that was the intent for those fees. I figured that Parks and Recs would take care of the signs, like you said. I thought those fees that we adopted was more for unforeseen things, lots and things of that nature, not, or places that have to be cleaned up, mowed, or not things that the electrical department could do. Just my thought.
Well, but my issue was it made us look terrible.
I agree.
And it was going to be if we matched them, it was really going to mean taking them all out and putting them up. That was going to be incredibly expensive. And for that to be making an appearance for our community, I hated to give them that burden. because if we're trying to make our community look better, I'm okay with it coming out of the community enhancement fee as opposed to being a burden on the electric. I still don't know what solution we're gonna do for that, because we've got covers up there now, but they don't match, and that's still, we've got a lot of people trafficking, and here's what I'm concerned about. That's gonna be the route to the film studio. And that route not looking as good as it could, I don't think is gonna speak well of us for people that are gonna do business at the film studio. Not that it's gonna kill a deal, it just doesn't, we don't look like a first-class community.
Jamie, did you have a? Other comments? Questions?
Yeah, so all of that, and now what? Like, that's just gonna be like a bullet point underneath one of,
That's what I was gonna ask. Am I the only person that this is?
it sounds serious, so I'll say it's important. I don't really pay attention to my surroundings to that extent. I've never seen it, but if you're saying that it looks bad, then yeah.
Well, that's why I voted to have this dollar fee. And it would start out at 50 cents, and now it's up to $1. And if we're not getting what it is, I'm ready to make a motion to not do that anymore, because we're not achieving the goal. So,
Mayor, I just want to, I think you're spot on, and having that money set aside so it can quickly go to, if we identify something that needs to be fixed, like on the spot, and that, oh, we'll budget next budget cycle or something that needs to be fixed. You know, for example, Wonder World, I-35, we have like the turn lanes where there's like a brick and, you know, like, but the planters haven't been planted since, I guess, the initial construction, but just small things like that, you know. Yes, people notice those things when you pull into a community, those small things, especially in highly visible areas. But yeah, set aside some of that money. It's not pre-programmed, it's just they're available so we can make these quick fixes when we.
well, I'm gonna give you two more examples. And one of them is when we put the T-posts up and the sign at the intersection of Wonder World and Hunter, where Purgatory Creek is, like to promote the nature sale. And the T-posts go, and the banners swung. That looks like a fifth-rate city. I'm sorry, and it's a city thing that we're doing. I don't know why we can't put some posts out that are permanent, and we put the banner, and the same, we've got similar in front of City Hall. Finally, we've got a framework up, but it's rusted, and when we put the banner up, we're still not putting it up so that the banner doesn't bend in the middle. And you drive by City Hall, and this is in front of City Hall, and it looks terrible.
So I think, you know, it's helpful to understand what the interests are. Obviously, we need to go back and look and see what all is funded from this funding source and what capacity is there within the existing dollar amount, because, you know, it's not just, there's also code enforcement, I believe, that's funded from here. There's also some of the staff that's funded from here. So it's just a matter of making sure that there's enough money to do everything. You know, and so it's going to have to be kind of a phased approach as far as what is the low-hanging fruit and what are those most visible areas that we may want to do. It may not be every single thing. So, Greg, you want to speak to that a little bit more?
Yes, great ideas, but it's been used for a lot of things. So we use it for mowing. We're using it for, on the Wonder World thing, we had to kill the grass that was just growing first. The CIP projects that have to be maintained, where now that's where a lot of that maintenance is coming out of that fund. So we need to look at it, but we can do more maintenance, but a lot of maintenance is already coming out of it.
I'm hoping that we can put $10,000 or $20,000, set it aside. I realize some of this is gonna be staff time, and not just dollars that are needed. But I think we need to have some set aside so that we can fix these things in a timely manner.
Let's look at what capacity is there and available. It may not be 10 or 20,000 that's available, but because then something else doesn't get done. If it's that we can't mow or we can't do something like that. So let us just look and see what doesn't sacrifice the current things that come out of there that have to be done, but we can do.
About 5 years we paid for all that stuff out of general fund before.
to bring that back into general fund would be,
I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there ought to be money in that fund if we can do something to fix our city.
And we do have some reserve funds in there that we build up to do bigger projects. So we can look at something like this, we just have to see.
I'm trying to bring it up before budget is done, instead of asking, oh, we got this, can we do it out of that money? No, because we've already budgeted it all. So I'm trying to get ahead of that so that some is budgeted to make our city look like a first-class city.
You know, I understand where the mayor's coming from, but from staff, I mean, can we have a spreadsheet on where that money has been spent?
Yep, that would be good.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
what's the time frame you would like for the full 5 years, just so we can bring back what y'all are asking for?
Mayor, any suggestions to me, the last 3 years, which,
I know where 1 year's worth of it went, and that was that Craddock median that's overgrown, and that's not making us look like a first-class city either.
yeah.
If we can spend that much money on that, we ought to be able to put some aside.
Just a couple of years, I'll be good with the last 2 years. Do you have a projection date when we might be able to receive that information?
Before budget policy maybe?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Great conversation, great dialogue. Final comments, I think we can go to wrapping it up and next steps. Again, thank you all so much for the time for these last 2 days. This is critical work and it's meaningful work as well. You've given us your time, your thoughts, and a lot of your brain power, right? So next steps, this goes back to your team, and we really break down what this looks like as far as strategy, and this is going to be a helpful roadmap to get where we need to go, right? Stephanie, do you, okay, yeah, here it is. We did the parking lot issues, future of the council committees.
That was something we just wanted to ask about. The current council committees have kind of been structured somewhat around the strategic priorities that you had prior. So just wanted to see, does this, going in this direction, does that change any of your council committees? Do we need to bring that back for further discussion? Like the sustainability committee and some of those that may not be necessarily as applicable with these goals going forward.
I think we just increased the importance of it, so I don't know why we automatically do away with the committee on it. I'm talking about, I thought you were talking about sustainability.
That was just one example, but I was talking about all of them. I was just using that one as an example.
I'd have to get out the list and look, but off the top of my head, I'm not. One didn't pop to mind as we were doing this. We'll see.
At what point do y'all want to look at that and discuss that?
Stephanie, is there some that you think that shouldn't be on there? Make sure you mention that in the report as well.
Okay.
Mayor?
And the last two, maybe, at the end of all of this, we talked about branding and changing and not stop using as much as we can the one that we got that, at least at that time, council agreed we didn't prefer. And so when I asked about it later, there wasn't money put in there, and I understand we were coming out of COVID, but if we're getting to the budget, and we can talk about budget policy workshop, but I really think we need to look at the branding and probably maybe get that done before we do the gateways and see how we're gonna fund the gateways. So those were the other two things I had on my list that don't necessarily fit into any of these, but we've been talking about it for a long time.
So on the gateways, my understanding is we have money for those identified. And so that one is one that we're taking care of. As far as the branding, I know, Ms. Hurley, I think you put something forward within the ARPA monies as something that could be considered, and I don't believe that it was approved. So can you just give us an update a little bit on that?
Yeah, it wasn't approved. I don't remember the exact amount, dollar funds that was needed for that. I believe it was between $50,000 and $80,000 to do a complete rebrand, new logo, new font design, pretty much everything that we would need to rebrand the city. So it's pretty pricey. I know that the other one that we currently have, the waterfall logo, was much more pricey, probably double. I know the mayor was part of that process. Before the mayor's time, excuse me.
Before my time. I might have been the one that vote, but I've been allowed.
So, I mean, is it council's wish to bring that back? I know we're going to be doing the American Rescue Plan dollars, you know, and looking at that. So is that one item, that'll be at the February meeting? And so we can bring that back at that time for y'all's consideration if that's something that you're wanting to look at as a possibility.
Any other council members want to look at funding rebranding for our city?
Well, it's supposed to be a waterfall. If you're looking at black and white, et cetera, it's not.
I will say that the waterfall logo is the approved brand right now, and so we are using that on some items. Generally, we'll use the seal, but we are using the waterfall logo on some items because that is the approved brand as of now. If that is something that council would like to, as a whole, look at moving away from, then we would need a full new brand. But at this time, I am allowing my staff to use the waterfall logo because that is the approved logo at this time.
I like the seal, the city seal.
There's a big difference, yeah, and I'll let, Rebecca might have some better words on this, but there's a big difference between a seal and a logo. It's a very different feel and vibe that comes from those two.
No, I'd like to relook at the brand.
I'd like to look at it, it depends on the cost.
Yeah, well, some of us have been around, have seen 3, maybe, different ones over the years, or maybe 4.
Me personally, given the results of the survey and just conversations with my neighbors, in my opinion from that feedback, I don't view branding in that sense as a community priority, personally. But I also acknowledge that Lauren and her team have done a phenomenal job with comms and really just totally restructuring and changing the vibe of even like the social media and being out there. So I'll go with whatever the group decides, and if the comms folks feel that that's something that would be meaningful or helpful, then I'm down. But
I will say super quick that there has been, in at least the last 2 years, there's been this, I guess, disconnect within the organization. Can we use the logo? Can we not? So I don't, especially during my time while I've been here, I don't feel that we've had an appropriate chance to really set the brand out there, make it our own, and I guess allow the whole community to see this as our brand and our image. So I will say that we have held off in a lot of cases, not putting it out on various items. And I think that's honestly to our detriment. We haven't been able to build up that brand.
We've also got different departments coming up with their own logos, and I'm seeing more and more of those, and I'm not sure if those are in harmony with each other necessarily. So now we're starting to get this huge disconnect, and we've got all these different things going on. So that's another concern that I have, is to pull it. Not that they can't keep using them, but to get some harmony across that and get some cohesiveness, because I'm not sure we have that, and none of them really connect to the current brand, for which I'm grateful. But
couldn't agree more, and we are working through that and helping those who want their own. Go ahead. I think Rebecca had one thing to say.
So the difference between, there's a brand which encompasses so much more than just the logo itself. So we as a city have always had our city seal. It is something that, in a visual perspective, it's outdated, it's difficult to reproduce on smaller items. So years ago, a different mayor went into the process of rebranding the city, where every entity in San Marcos was asked to use the logo itself and to follow the brand standards. We have to remember that we have two different audiences now that the Convention and Visitor Bureau is within the city itself. We have our residents, which a city seal works, and then you have the identity for visitors, and that should be fun, vibrant. It should be appealing to visitors. So we have to make a decision as, do we want to be a business with a logo, which we have the seal, or do we want to have something more than that? So when you look at our product as far as the city of San Marcos, we have, like Joe's wearing the seal, and then Greg's wearing a logo. So do we want to have a seal and a logo? So that's a decision that you as council also have to give us is, do we want to do we want to modernize the seal that we have? Or do we want to have a logo outside of our seal?
And now, I think the logo is the long-term thing, right? The label, the San Marcos with the waterfall thing could be changed over time, right? So I like the seal to stay, like it's the historical, it's the one for the residents, and then we've got our branding, right? And that can change over time, so that's why it probably should be relooked at from time to time.
Or we can wear Wingstop shirts like Les.
That's it. But in all honesty, I think
got a free rescue truck with the $800,000 purchase of the church.
in all honesty, I think the difficulty that we've had as an organization is that the seal is one that is accepted universally. The brand is not, but we haven't heard that from council as a body not to use it. And so I think that's the difficulty, is that not to use the brand. And so that's what we need. I don't remember direction not to use it. I remember we want to look at the brand and rebrand it. Yes, you're right, at visioning.
Stop using it, but to try to start, maybe if you don't have to have it on something, maybe you don't have to put it on everything, but if you have to put something on it, then yes, you use the one that's current adopted.
But that's such a difficult call, because staff may make one call and y'all may see it differently. And so it puts us in a precarious situation, because nobody wants to do something that is going to be looked at and just thought, okay, the rest of it doesn't, all I can get past is just seeing the logo, and I don't like that the logo's on there. So I think if we just have some unified direction, if it is that we're going to go with the branding, and we can rebrand and do something that everybody agrees, or if it's that the council says, just start using the city seal and no logo going forward till we do a brand, we just, whatever that direction is, we just need clarity so that it's not a judgment call, and then, because communications is going to continue to use it unless we hear otherwise from council that you want something different.
Could I please get a copy of that brand sent to me?
You want the brand standards, the whole because it's like a 256-page brand standards document, or do you just want the logo?
I just want the logo. Can I
Okay.
just look at it?
You want the whole thing? So earlier, Mayor, you mentioned the different departments. So on our end, as far as the visitor side, with the direction that you had asked in a meeting that I was in, and you asked, can we step away from that? We have created very simple, we don't consider them our logo, but we consider them brand identities. And so we have changed a few times to adapt to whatever we are using. So for social media, it was difficult for us to use the waterfall. So we had to figure out something to stack, and we shared these, I think, with y'all, the round. And so when it comes to our department, when I say our department, it's the Convention and Visitor Bureau, we adapt to what we have to work with. And right now, we're simply using a very simple font, and it has like a little spark, a little sunrise type thing, a little sparkle. And so that's what we're using now. And we continue to use it, but please know that that's not, we haven't adopted a logo, that's just the identity piece that we're using right now. And Main Street, the same thing, is we're all trying to stick to the same colors as the colors within the brand standards for our other one, but they too have a different audience, and that's who they're targeting as well.
And plus the fact that we've been through Texas Natural, and we've been through another one, and we've been through at least 3, maybe 4. Yeah, but that's my point, is, and I can give you all the reasons why I don't like the waterfall, because the words run together and it looks terrible in black and white, and you can't tell it's a waterfall and all that other stuff. But what we've got is we've got departments that are now doing their own, you may not call it branding, but it is. And so now we've got all these diverse things, and those have not had approval by the council. Maybe they don't need it, but now we've got all these different ones, and I think the whole idea of a brand is consistency. But I think council has given direction that, yeah, we wanted to do that for a couple of years, and then when I ask, when are we going to do that, then I'm told it's not in the budget, so that's why I'm bringing it up now, and I'll bring it up during budget policy, is if we've got a majority of council that's saying, yes, let's go do this, I think it's time to go do this. And I heard of the majority.
One comment for Linda.
So from HR right now, we're doing more marketing than we ever have before and working with Lauren to do that. One of the things that we find when we go out and do job fairs and things of that nature, the seal looks great on letterhead and business cards and things like that. It is so very busy that it's hard to have something identifiable in such a small space. And we've got that nanosecond to get somebody's attention before they're off to the next thing. And we want our website and all of these things to have a cohesive look. And that's where, you know, we feel like if we've got to pick one of the two, the waterfall serving our needs better now. Now, you know, if there's a different option for us to choose from, that's great. We just want to have something that ties in with the rest of the city. And we don't want to create our own, so.
Yeah, and I'm not saying to necessarily do away with the seal. There's times when I think it works, and depending on what the branding comes up with that may still work at times, and I'm okay with letting y'all figure out when that works and when we would use the new one, and how they might integrate or harmonize, I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows at this point. But let the record show I wasn't saying automatically throw out the seal, because I don't want another former mayor to come hunt me down.
I think this conversation is super helpful to me. I've been just like thinking, and I retract I don't retract my previous statement fully. I still think that the community might perceive it to be like, really, y'all gonna spend $80K on a logo? But when I'm just thinking back to conversations I've had in the organization I work for and other organizations I've worked for, and the importance of branding, and I think because our neighbors have noticed that we are making strides to build that community trust and those community relations, it's like probably the best time to come up with new branding, right? So they can associate this with a new look. And then lastly, I know we were poking fun at Chief's top, but I mean, the fire department was like very highly rated in the community service, so maybe we should all wear Wingstop tops because he's doing something right.
No, I completely agree with the mayor. I've never looked down upon any of the departments that have used the emblem or the brand. There's a time and place for both. And I just have never really cared for the brand. That's why I want to go back and look at it. I don't want to get rid of the seal at all, because of exactly what you're saying. There's time and place for it to be, and it makes sense. But there's also times when we're wearing the seal out, like I have a couple of shirts that have the seal on it, you can't tell they're San Marcos. When we go places, people are like, what seal is that, right? And even the one shirt that had the logo like that, you can't really tell that it's San Marcos. So that's a big thing with me, is when I'm out in public or wherever I'm representing the community, people can't tell where I'm from. Where a lot of cities are like, oh, you can tell, that's their brand, and hey, you're from wherever, and that's my big thing with the brand. So yeah, if we continue to do both, that's perfectly fine, but I do want to look at the brand.
So what I'm hearing is we will bring this back during the ARPA discussion in February, and that'll be an opportunity to look at funding the branding if the council would like to from that funding source, so we can do that. We just need to make sure that, like I said, that that's prioritized, and so we'll bring it back then.
And I was gonna kind of go there too, that, yeah, it might be kind of revitalization, but I was gonna have a little bit of trouble, I'm willing to discuss it at that point.
Right.
You know, we could discuss it, but it's probably more of a general budget,
I
right?
don't know. I think it'll be a good conversation because I can definitely see that there's ways to use that project as an opportunity to build further community, which is what we need during times of crisis. Like branding impacts perception and trust. Does that make sense? I might have not been like this, like for it, like this supportive of it like 2 years ago when I wasn't able to see the work of the staff because I was coming in with the perceptions of just what I'm seeing as a everyday citizen, but being more involved in seeing the progress, I feel comfortable supporting that and talking to my neighbors about it. But definitely willing to have the conversation as a group later.
Councilmember Garza, I think that was the intention when I initially brought it up toward the ARPA is we're coming out of COVID, we're trying to get our community back together and a full rebrand of, who are we as a city was part of that. It's much more than a logo, and I know you said that, but I do want our community to know that this is much more than just a new design. This is a full packet of information.
And I was a bona fide hater before. I think if we go back and look at the recording, I was probably the one who was like, really? But it was also like PTSD from the whole, like we're emerging from a pandemic, but seeing it holistically and like simultaneous to this conversation about everything as a whole, I think it has helped me change where I'm coming from.
Mayor? I may cause even more consternation with this one, but I'm going to say that we have a lot of talented students up at the university, and upon graduation, they're going to be working for the type of firm that we would go out and ask to do this. So I have said before, maybe even a contest. I don't know, y'all tell me it's way more complex than that, but I think we've got some talented students at the university. We might not need to spend a whole $50,000, $80,000.
Thank you, Mayor. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Not too crazy about spending $50,000 or $80,000 or even $30,000. I just don't like spending money, especially at this time. But thank you for bringing that up.
We'll share the packet with you guys so that y'all have a full understanding of what actually comes with the brand because it's much more than just imaging. And so I think that's why we lean on a firm for something like this.
Right, we need like what are their fonts? What are the what are the complementary colors?
Right.
Like
The meanings behind the fonts. What is
Where to use it also.
And-
It doesn't look just black and white.
And so I went back and found when it was done, it was in September of 2010. They did use hot tax money for that. So there's a potential funding source right there. There was a task force that did it. It looks like they spent a lot of time, a long time on it, but I kind of like the idea of doing a contest or bringing the community involved in that.
I think they had 3 for us to choose from because I remember coming to the activity center and voting, and then they went with something I think completely different.
We spent over $200,000 on the entire process.
Yeah, and I couldn't find a dollar amount on it.
Because we started, I was on the task force or whatever it was, representing the chamber. But yes, we started off with one firm, then there was a subcontractor, and then, as the mayor said, the community we didn't choose what was taken to the community, and then something else was created. So there was a few firms that were included along the way.
I think hot tax is definitely something that we can look at. It's a source of funding that we, and I will tell you that has been one of the holdups is that the contest idea has been not always looked at very favorably by the design experts within our staff. And because that is such an important part of telling the city and the image of the city, that it was something that really should be, in their opinion, directed more by professional people. And so that's,
If the contest does
then hot tax will be, I think that's definitely a very good
Good community outreach program.
suggestion. And if that's what was done before, I think we can justify it.
The only reason I was kind of thinking about a contest is just getting community engagement and involvement, right? Let them take ownership of it, but I do understand the idea of trying to professional and everything else.
And yeah, that's what I thought initially, but I think there's like other ways other cities have involved the community. Like, I want to say one city did have a competition, it was for kids, and they slapped that on any branding that had to do with like a children's activity, right? So like stuff that the library did. Not trying to, we're like, oh, we're gonna give the library like a cartoon logo, but does that make sense? I think there's, yeah, like there's other ways to incorporate stuff like that, or this is gonna be like a little sticker that we give out this year, you know what I mean? But
And if I could request that we get, if staff could go back and look up exactly how much was spent on that, and the exact time frame of that, just to have an idea of what was processed. Thank you.
Is there another comment?
And for those departments that have individual logos, there is a way within the logo designation or creation that different departments can be moved into that. The library logo was one that was approved, and it used the same colors and the same font from the We Love Your Company, but we didn't think that that suited for the public library.
Right, and I'm not opposed to different departments having something that identifies them, like the new one for utilities. I think is very, very clever, but just making sure it all harmonizes in some way. That was my point. Not that you can't do something to identify your area, but to make sure it all kind of makes sense with each other.
And so our new logo was actually developed by the communications department to
Tommy, you want to-
have that flow. And our new logo was designed by the communications department to make sure it had that flow by our designer at the time. And also just saying, if you notice that new logo, that new brand on any of our vehicles, you'll also see the city shield on that vehicle too. So.
And that's where the seal or the shield and something else together makes sense at times, because our community knows the shield.
And that was on purpose.
Okay. Any other comments?
So just to make sure that we have everything clearly, so we are going to provide a list of community enhancement expenditures within the last 2 years. We are going to provide a list of council committees before the budget policy workshop. We are going to provide the branding document to council and also look at funding, branding, possibly out of hot funds, but you would also like to see the time frame and amount of money that was spent on the current brand that we have. So does that capture all the things that I heard during our discussion right now? Did I forget anything? Is that? Yesterday, I do have down there about the increase in our tax base chart. That's for budget policy, yes. And that's actually a nice segue into the next item, is that I know we've discussed a lot of information over the last 2 days, and just want to know, what do you have any specific requests for budget policy as we're getting forward for that to help you be the best prepared that you can? We are planning to have further discussion about economic development incentives and when those things fall off and things like that. We are planning to have more discussion with you on the TERS and the TRIZ. And so we will be bringing that information. The increase in tax base as you asked for. Anything about property tax relief or the history of property tax relief in terms of what's been funded there? I'm just throwing something out there. Because of, there's the,
You might explain to everybody about the 4A4B and why we don't have it.
exactly, that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, and if we have something on FM 110 and when our obligation on that drops off, now that we've got Amazon pouring into that fund. Again, it's when are we gonna have money to spend?
Right. And that'll be part of the financial information that Mr. Locke will be preparing. So this, as you know, the budget policy will be more nuts and bolts for the '24 budget. So we just want to make sure y'all have everything you need to make the most informed decisions as part of that process. So anything else that y'all can think of? I know we will put, we'll have the different decision points that we'll be asking you about. And the public safety staffing will be one of those key areas that we'll ask you about. Anything else?
And then forgive me because I probably forget quite a bit every now and then. Did you ever give us the information on the going back and figuring out how much money we lost when it came to the impervious ground cover on acre lots and all that? Y'all were supposed to.
Delay in the.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
That was
Impervious cover.
how much we didn't collect,
And utility.
or how much we collected.
Yes. what-
Yeah, because we weren't building them for a while. This was,
That's the one,
yeah,
where they didn't have a utility bill.
right. That was sufficient. That was supposed to be.
When y'all discovered that when there wasn't a utility bill, we weren't charging them, and y'all had to go back and figure it out and charge them, and then I think that's the money that we're wondering how much that was. I think in history, which y'all have already provided to us.
A history of what y'all have already provided to us about utility rate changes over whatever that time frame was that you've already sent to us last fall. I think that would be helpful, because when we talk about this, we're going to ultimately talk about tax rate, and one of the things that we like to know that Mr. Gonzalez does remind us is we keep inching things up, and sometimes we need to, but we need to acknowledge that we've inched up utility rates, and then we inch up the tax, where did you say one time, where does it end? I'll say, where does it end? So I think that, and that's information you've already got, that you can just send to us. Right. Yeah. Let me know when we're done, because I have to properly adjourn the meeting.
That is Stephanie? Yeah. Did you want to go back to the debrief of session and? Okay.
The final thing that we hope to do was just to know, what were council's impressions about the last 2 days, and as far as the format that we used this time? Was it helpful? Were there things that you can give us, to help us make this more effective and make it even better for y'all? I mean, just really want to understand some of your feedback, since this was a newer process, and we want to make sure that it's something that you feel is helpful and effective.
Tee us off. I like the first presentation. Here's the finances. The visual display of that data to help us kind of understand. Like, you can have all the wishes you want, but ultimately there's only a limited number of dollars to make those wishes happen. So I think the staff always kind of does a good job teeing up the elected policymakers of, here's the finances. Now tell us where you want to have our policy so we can match those resources and finances to y'all's policy. I think past 2 days, I'm happy. Things that were concerning to me were elevated: public safety, priority, the things with health. I think we had a great dialogue. I think this is what happens when you have sustained leadership, institutional knowledge in key places in our departments, and very pleased the past 2 days.
All right, first off, I'd like to just thank staff. I know how much work this was and how hard it is for all of you to walk away from your daily job to sit here for 2 days with us. I'm extremely happy that we're in person. Doing the last 2 on Zoom was extremely difficult and disconnected. And so it was great to interact and feel like a team, right? Like, we've been missing that tremendously. So that's my first takeaway from this. Second off, I was extremely happy to get just a budget breakdown at the beginning of this. The nuts and bolts of where we're at, where we could be. we could throw a wish list out there all day long. We don't have the money to do it, it's not gonna be feasible. So, and I think there was some real candid feedback, and it probably was because we were in person, so. Yeah, and because we can throw out all we want, but you're the ones that have to do the day-to-day operations, and we need your feedback, honest feedback. So I felt like we got that, and that's really important. So, you know, I thought this was good. It was very different than previous ones, much more structured. Thanks for the facilitator, I think, helped do that a lot. I think that did, you know, bring some, take that out of staff's hand, where they can focus on the stuff. And then, so I didn't know how that was going to work. I was happy that was done too. So those are just some initial takeaways, and I thought this was good, productive. Thanks.
I thought this was really good that y'all brought us something more realistic to start with. The finance review was really good. And I really like it that we're here. I like it that the directors are here and the participation with the directors. And I'm fine if I come up with something that's odd, not industry accepted, or just, you know, too far out there, that staff says, wait a minute, this is what we need to do. I welcome that. As y'all have heard me say, just to go where they got elected, y'all are professionals. So, but I've been elected 7 times. So anyway, lost one. Anyway, I'm just so appreciative that y'all have spent your time preparing for this and your time over the last couple of days. And I thank y'all for that, and always welcome your input and respect which you bring to the table. So thank you, council. I thought we did a good job of us working and listening to the staff, and I just feel like it went very, very well. So I thank everyone, and thank you.
I don't want it to like buzz, you know? Ditto to what my colleagues have said. I really like this structure. I appreciated the different methods that we used to share our thoughts. I thought the group project going around the room was really productive. I got to have good conversations with folks I don't usually get to interact with. What else? I appreciated the PowerPoints being sent in advance. That really helps me be able to be more thoughtfully engaged. And then I guess working alongside my peers, I had to step out multiple times due to family emergencies, but it felt good knowing that if I was out there, that I could come back in and, you know, Matthew would be like, this is what we ended up over. And then when the mayor saw it was something that she thought would pop out to me, she went and tried to look for me. So I think overall it went really well. I appreciate everybody's input and authenticity. And thank you, Stephanie, for proposing this format. I really like that y'all kind of did that part. I have the intellectual humility to recognize it. None of this is my area of expertise. So it feels much better knowing that we are working in collaboration with y'all who have to do the work every day. So yeah, thank you. I felt really like a part of a big City of San Marcos team, so I dig it.
First, thank you to staff. I know I say it to you as often as I possibly can, but I am so appreciative, not just the work that you do for us, but to be part of the team. I consider us all colleagues, we all are all co-workers, to make sure that the city we love is that little Camelot that we can walk away from. Being the freshman here, it is it's surreal to be able to have this conversation with everybody and to see how the city comes together, and it's really awesome to see all these different departments contribute and to do it candidly and to not have a fear and to understand that we are doing this together. You guys rock. I love your expertise. I love the fact that you are open with us. The presentations were beautiful. Like Alyssa said, I'm not an expert in any of these things, but you really simplified it enough for me to have the confidence to not only to make the votes, but to trust you guys and what you're presenting to us. Absolutely. And just thank you. I really appreciate this format. I know from my IT industry, this is how we do things with our engineers, just to put them on the spot and to have them go out of that little comfort zone to realize this is how things work. And I'm just so impressed by you guys, and every day, just so proud to be with you. So thank you very much for everything you do.
I believe all my colleagues said it all, but I was the same way. I got to know a lot of y'all, interact with quite a bit of y'all, and realize, well, I kind of knew we are 18, we're one, and we all want what's best for San Marcos, and I really appreciate that. I think the layout was perfect. This is the best one I had so far, and it's just going to get better going forward. But in the other side of the coin, here it comes. The only thing I did not like is spending 25 minutes on each subject. I think we could have done it for 15 minutes or something, and we would have been out of here by now. But guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and I want to say thank you to all of you, as you did give your very best in terms of staying engaged, having all of you here. I know Shane was with us in spirit and did call in, or he would have been here, in person if he had not gone through his surgery. But I just really want to thank y'all for having the open mind to embrace a new process. Even with our team. Sometimes I come up with these things in my head and I'm like, why don't we do something? And, there's always that collaboration where it's like, oh yeah, what if we do this? Or what if we do it like that? And so the fact that y'all are all always so open-minded too, it just really, really helps. I think we're working very hard to be the one team, one voice, and make sure that your staff and the community staff, the community's government, is able to know that we are working collaboratively together to be the best that we possibly can be for our community. So I want to thank council, I want to thank all of our team who put this on, all the directors for being here and giving your candid thoughts and opinions about things. It's very, very, very important that we're all bought into these goals so that we can feel invested when we're talking with our teams, and they help and they understand how they fit into the big picture of everything and how we're navigating things for our community. So thank you all very, very much. We look forward to bringing the strategies to you, but very much appreciate you for the two days that you've all spent here together. So thank you.
Are we closed out with that part of our program? All right, Mr. Trevino, did anyone sign up for question and answer with press and public? Seeing no press and public in the room, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Gleason. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Prather. Mr. Trevino.
Mr. Mendoza.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Ms. Garza. Aye. Mr. Houston. Aye. Mr. Gleason.
Aye.
Mr. Prather.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 6-0.
To be approved.